The gentle touch, she stood over him, blood on her hands, shaking. Not her blood, not Ryland's, but General Voss's. The man who burned her people, who ordered her chained, who called her a worthless alien. Now, he lay still at her feet. Zuri dropped the broken spear. It clanged against a rock. Her chest rose and fell fast. Her eyes were wild. She couldn't tell if she was crying or just finally breathing again. Behind her, the village was in smoke and fire, but still standing. The people had fought. The children were safe. And Rylan. She turned fast, searching for him. Rylan, she shouted, stumbling through the haze. Zuri, his voice called back, rough and low. She ran toward him, past fallen enemies, past burning wagons, until she saw him kneeling beside a tree, holding his side. Blood poured between his fingers. No, she whispered, falling beside him. No, no, no. Stay with me. He looked up at her, pale but smiling. We made it. She pressed her hands against the wound. Don't talk, just breathe. Please, he chuckled weakly. You sound like me now. Tears slipped down her cheeks. You saved me again. No, he said. You saved them. Zuri looked around. The villagers were helping each other. The fire was dying. Children were hugging their parents. And General Voss would never harm anyone again. Zuri turned back to Rylan, her voice soft. You're not allowed to die? Then help me up, he whispered. She laughed through tears and pulled his arm over her shoulder. Together, they stood. The people around them began to cheer. Not loud, not wild. Just soft claps and grateful eyes. A child ran up to her, Nala, and hugged her tightly. You're like my mama now, the girl whispered. Zuri froze. Her lip trembled. She looked down at Nala and whispered, and you're like my heart. Later, as the stars returned to the sky and the fireflies filled the night, Zuri sat beside Rylan in the quiet garden. He was wrapped in bandages, leaning against a tree. She sat close beside him, her shoulder gently against his. They didn't speak for a long time. Then Rylan finally asked, Do you remember the first thing you said to me? She smirked. Is this poison? He laughed weakly. Yeah, you looked ready to bite me. I was, she said. But I didn't, he nodded. Because you felt something. Zuri looked down at her hands. I didn't know what it was then, but now I do. She turned to face him. I felt a gentle touch, she whispered, when all I knew before was pain. Rylan's hand slid into hers, slow, careful. She didn't pull away. She held it tight. Around them, the village lights glowed like stars. Peaceful, alive. No cages, no chains. Only the memory of a human's hand that never hurt her, and a new future. Built, with both of them, together. The forest of fireflies. Zuri had never seen a firefly before. Not on her world, not during the war, not even in her dreams. Now they danced around her like tiny floating stars, glowing, gentle, beautiful. She stood still, barely breathing, afraid. They might vanish if she moved too quickly. Do they sting? She whispered. Beside her, Rylan smiled. No, they just shine. She watched one land on her finger. It pulsed with golden light, then flew away. Zuri turned slowly, taking in the forest. Trees swayed under the soft breeze. Leaves shimmered with light from the glowing bugs. Everything here felt soft, peaceful. She didn't understand it. For so long, her life had been about running, hiding, bleeding, surviving. Now this? It didn't feel real. Where are we? She asked. Rylan stepped, beside her, a few miles from the border. Past this forest is the village. Zuri looked at him. You said humans and aliens live there, together? Yes. No weapons, no soldiers. Just people who are tired of war. Zuri didn't say anything. She just walked slowly forward, letting the fireflies light her path. And then, laughter. She froze. Children's laughter. Rylan motioned for her to follow. They walked through a clearing and saw them, 6 small children chasing each other under the trees. 2 were human. The rest were alien, all of them smiling. One small girl wore Zuri's skin color, purple-blue. She had tiny horns and bright eyes. Zuri's breath caught in her throat. The girl stopped when she saw them and screamed with joy. "Papa Rylan!" The girl ran toward him, arms open wide. Zuri blinked in shock. "Papa?" Rylan knelt down and caught the girl in his arms. He spun her around gently and laughed. "I missed you, little star," he said. Zuri stood still, confused, silent. When Rylan put the girl down, he turned to Zuri. "Zuri, this is Nala." Zuri stared at the girl. "She's yours?" "No," Rylan said softly. "But I found her, just like I found you. Her family didn't survive. I brought her here." Zuri knelt down slowly. Nala tilted her head and smiled. "You look like me," the little one said. Zuri nodded. "Yes, I do." Nala stepped closer and touched Zuri's hand. "Are you sad?" she asked. Zuri blinked hard. Her throat tightened. "Yes," she said. "Don't be," Nala said, hugging her. "Papa Rylan keeps us safe." Zuri couldn't speak. She just hugged the child back. In that moment, something inside her cracked. But it wasn't pain. It was healing. Later, as they sat near a fire inside the small village, Zuri watched as the adults greeted her with smiles. Some were human, some were alien. They cooked together, laughed, shared food. One older woman handed Zuri a bowl of stew and said, warmly, "You're safe now." Zuri looked at Rylan across the fire. He didn't smile. He just nodded once, like he knew what she was feeling. She sat quietly and took her first bite. It was warm, spiced, simple, but it tasted like peace. And peace, to her, was the strangest flavor of all. That night, Zuri sat under the stars with Nala, curled against her shoulder. She whispered, "Do the bad men ever come here?" Rylan replied softly, "Not yet, but they're searching." Zuri nodded, then looked at him with a quiet, firm voice. "If they do, I'll fight." Rylan looked at her. "You've already fought enough." She shook her head. "Not for myself. For this," she pointed at the children playing under fireflies. "For this, I'll stand again." Return of the general. The sky didn't make a sound, but the birds vanished. The breeze stopped. The fireflies didn't come out. Zuri noticed first. She stood on the hill, watching the distant road below the village. The forest was too still. The silence was too loud. Something was wrong. Then she saw them. Black ships in the sky. 5 of them. No flags. No mercy. Her body went cold. "They found us," she whispered. Behind her, Rylan stepped out of the small wooden house, holding his old rifle. He followed her gaze, then cursed under his breath. "General Voss." Zuri turned sharply. "Who?" Rylan's eyes narrowed. "A war dog, a butcher. He never stops until everything burns. If he's here for you." "No," Zuri said, trembling. "He's here for us." Below, one of the ships landed in a field. Dust exploded in all directions. Troops in black armor marched out, cold and quiet. At their front was a tall man with silver hair and a sharp face. His eyes were like ice. Dead. Cruel. He carried no gun. He didn't need one. "Is that him?" Zuri asked. Rylan nodded. "That's Voss." Just then, loudspeakers echoed across the trees. "Zuri of the Skymark blood, come out. You have run long enough." The children stopped playing. People stepped out of their homes. Afraid. Confused. Voss continued. "Return to chains, or this village burns." Zuri's fists clenched. Her knees shook. Not from fear, but fury. "They don't know peace," she whispered. "They only know fire." Rylan turned to her. You don't have to face him. We can hide the kids, lead the fight away. No, she interrupted. I will not run again, not this time. But she looked at him strong and calm. If I run, they'll keep chasing. If I fight, maybe they'll stop. Rylan searched her eyes, then nodded once. We'll do it together. The villagers gathered. Mothers held children. Older, aliens clutched tools, not weapons. One woman asked, Will we survive? Rylan stepped forward. We don't fight because we want to. We fight because they want us to kneel. Zuri raised her voice. We're not slaves. Not anymore. The villagers looked at her. A few stepped forward. I'll stand, said a quiet old man. So will I, said a young alien boy. One by one, they all stood. Rylan turned to Zuri. You lead them. I'll watch your back. Zuri took a deep breath and stepped toward the front of the hill. She raised her voice, calm but powerful. General Voss, she called, I am here. Silence. Then the man stepped forward, a cruel smile on his face. You were worth more chained, Zuri shouted back, and you are worth nothing at all. His eyes narrowed. Then you will burn with the rest. He raised his hand. The soldiers aimed their weapons. Zuri closed her eyes and waited. But before the first shot rang out, a blast of light shot from the trees behind her. Rylan had triggered an old EMP mine. The soldiers' weapons sparked and shut. Down! Zuri yelled, Now! The villagers charged with fire and fury. Not soldiers, just people who were done being afraid. Zuri fought beside them. She didn't feel weak. She didn't feel broken. She felt free. For the first time in her life, she wasn't running from death. She was running toward life, and she wasn't alone anymore. The scar on his chest, Zuri couldn't sleep. Not because of pain, not even because of fear, but because of the scar. She had seen it clearly earlier that night, just before Rylan threw his jacket over his bare chest. It wasn't a bullet wound, or a knife slash. It was a deep curved mark with 3 smaller lines crossing it. Not human. Not random. It was a warrior's mark. Her people carved it into enemies who fought fiercely, but did not kill. It was rare, honorable. Zuri sat beside the small fire in the hidden cave. Rylan had carried her for hours through tunnels and woods until they found shelter beneath old mountain rocks. He was now sleeping across from her, his weapon nearby, his breathing steady. She couldn't stop staring. Why would a human have that mark? Why would a human protect her instead of turning her in? Zuri picked up a small stick and poked at the fire. The flames cracked softly. Suddenly, Rylan stirred. He opened his eyes, looked at her, then sat up with a tired smile. Couldn't sleep? He asked. She didn't answer right away. Her voice was calm but serious when she spoke. That scar. On your chest. Where did you get it? Rylan blinked, surprised. He looked down and touched the mark gently. You noticed that, huh? It's not just a scar. It's a message. He nodded. Yeah. I figured it meant something. Zuri stared at him. Who gave it to you? He took a deep breath. A long time ago, during one of the raids, I broke orders. I ran off on my own when I heard screaming. I found a village, burned, bodies everywhere. One small alien girl, no older than 6, was trying to pull her mother out of a collapsed house. Zuri's eyes softened. She knew that kind of pain. I helped her, Rylan continued. I lifted the beam off her mother. But it was too late. The girl was crying. When I touched her shoulder to tell her we had to go, she turned and stabbed me with a ceremonial blade. He smiled sadly. Right here. He pointed at the scar. She was terrified, but I didn't fight her. I just stood there. Zuri whispered. And then I gave her food, wrapped her in my coat, left her with the last surviving elder I could find. I told them to run. Then I left. Zuri's throat tightened. That story, it matched something she had heard long ago. Whispers of a human who had saved an alien child after a massacre. Do you know her name? She asked carefully. No. I didn't stay long enough to ask. Zuri looked away. She felt something heavy inside her chest. Something she didn't want to feel: hope. You were marked because she believed you fought with honor, she said softly. That's what the scar means. I've lived with it ever since, Rylan replied. Sometimes I wonder if she survived. She did. Rylan turned to her in surprise. How do you know? Zuri looked at him. Her voice was low but steady. Because I was that child. The cave went silent. Only the crackling fire spoke between them. Rylan's eyes widened slowly. You? Zuri nodded. My mother died in my arms. I saw your face in the smoke. I carved that scar into your chest with the last bit of strength I had. Rylan swallowed hard. He looked stunned. Not scared, not ashamed, just moved. I thought about you many times, he said. That moment changed me. Zuri felt her heartbeat racing. She didn't know whether to cry or shout. All these years, the man she feared, the human she thought was her enemy, he had saved her life twice. You saved me, she whispered. Twice. He gave a small nod. Maybe the galaxy brought us back together for a reason. Zuri didn't speak. She wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly feeling the cold more than before. Rylan noticed. He took off his coat and placed it over her shoulders. No words, just silence and warmth. Then, a sudden sound outside the cave. Metal clicking. Movement. Rylan snapped into action. He grabbed his weapon and signaled for her to stay quiet. Voices echoed faintly. They were seen heading this way. Keep your scanners up. She's worth 10,000 credits alive. Bounty hunters. Zuri's blood ran cold. Rylan crept toward the cave entrance. His face was serious now. Focused, Zuri reached out and grabbed his wrist. Don't fight alone, she whispered. He looked back at her, surprised. I won't, he said. Then he looked her in the eyes. I promise I'll protect you, even if it costs me everything. She nodded once. The girl who once marked him as a fighter was now ready to stand beside him. The chase begins. The cave trembled, not from an earthquake but from footsteps. Zuri froze. Her breathing stopped. Not one, not two. Many. She looked at Rylan, who stood near the mouth of the cave with his back against the wall. His weapon was ready, but his face was calm. Too calm. How many? She mouthed silently. He raised 3 fingers. Then one more. 4. Bounty hunters. She heard one of them laugh outside. This cave reeks of alien blood, she's close, another voice replied coldly. Alive. They pay more. Shoot the human if he resists. Zuri's pulse raced. The fire was still crackling in the corner. Too loud. Too bright. Rylan motioned for her to crawl toward a crack in the back wall. A narrow tunnel. She hesitated, then nodded. Slowly, she moved toward it on her elbows. Pain shot through her body with each movement, but she didn't stop. Rylan covered her with his body as she slid into the tunnel. Then, he turned back, alone now, facing the entrance. Footsteps got louder. One shadow appeared. Then another. Zuri, watching from the crack, saw Rylan raise his hands. Easy, he said. I don't want trouble. One bounty hunter stepped inside, aiming a glowing rifle. His armor was dented and his helmet had alien skulls painted on it. You're harboring a fugitive, the hunter growled. Rylan shrugged. You see anyone here? The hunter raised his weapon. Move. That's when Rylan tossed a smoke bomb. Boom. The cave filled with thick gray fog. Light disappeared. Zuri couldn't even see her hands. Gunfire broke out. Screams. Thuds. Then silence. Heavy, choking silence. Zuri's heart pounded in her ears. She held her breath. Then, Rylan's voice. Come out. It's safe. Zuri crawled back through the tunnel. Crack. Smoke still hung in the air, but she could see now. 3 bodies lay on the floor. unmoving. Rylan stood over them, bruised, breathing hard, but alive. She looked around. The fourth? He pointed upward. Ran. Zuri stared at him. You didn't kill all of them? He shook his head. Only the ones who pulled the trigger first. She was quiet for a moment, then said softly, You could have let them take me. I don't give up people, he said. Zuri felt something warm rise in her chest again. Not fear, not hate. Something else? Respect? Gratitude? She wasn't sure. Then Rylan turned toward the back wall. Come on, that tunnel leads through the mountain. But we have to move fast. The one who escaped will bring more. Zuri followed him. Her legs hurt, but she didn't complain, not anymore. As they crawled through the tunnel, she spoke quietly. I never thought a human would fight for me. Rylan gave a dry laugh. I never thought I'd be fighting humans to protect an alien girl. She smirked. So were both, confused. Exactly. They exited the tunnel into cold night air. A pale moon hung low above the trees. The wind smelled of smoke, but also freedom. Rylan pointed to a distant hill. There's a village. A place where humans and aliens live together in peace. Zuri raised an eyebrow. That's real? He nodded. I built it, for people like you. She looked up at him. Like us. Rylan smiled. Yeah, like us. But just then, a voice crackled through a dropped bounty hunter radio. Target escaped, sending drones. Orders are clear. Burn everything. Zuri and Rylan exchanged a glance. They weren't safe yet. The chase was only beginning. Chained in the dust, the ground was dry, cracked. Hot wind blew dust across the ruined battlefield. Broken weapons and burned flags lay everywhere. In the middle of it all, she sat, chained to a rusted metal post. Her skin was bruised, her lips dry. Her arms were tied behind her back with wire that had cut into her purple skin. She had not eaten in 2 days. She was an alien girl, barely older than a teenager by human years. Her name was Zuri. Her people had called her a fighter. The humans had called her a monster. Now she was just a prisoner. Zuri could hear footsteps, heavy boots getting closer. She closed her eyes. This is it, she thought. They've come to kill me like the others. The footsteps stopped right in front of her. She waited for pain. A kick, a bullet. But nothing came. Slowly, she opened her eyes. A human man stood there. His armor was dirty. His weapon was slung over his back. His face was covered in dirt and sweat. But his eyes were not full of hate. They looked tired and sad. He crouched down, didn't speak, didn't shout, just looked at her. Zuri flinched when he moved. He reached into his pack and pulled out a small metal bottle. He opened it and held it out. Water Zuri stared at it, then looked away. Poison? She whispered with a weak voice. He shook his head. No poison, just water, he said softly. His voice was calm. Not like a soldier. Not like a killer. Her throat burned. Her body screamed for the water. But still, she hesitated. He leaned forward, careful not to scare her, and placed the bottle on the ground beside her. Then he stood up slowly and took a few steps back. Zuri watched him, still breathing hard, still ready for pain, but it didn't come. Only silence. And the water. Minutes passed. Then she moved, slowly, carefully. Her fingers shook as she reached for the bottle. She managed to grab it, twist off the top with shaking hands, and drank. The water tasted like life. She drank too fast and coughed, some of it spilling down her chin. Still, she didn't stop. The man didn't move. He just watched. When she was done, she looked at him again. Why? She asked. The man walked closer again, but didn't kneel this time. Because you look like you've been through hell, he said. And I'm not here to add more pain. Zuri narrowed her eyes. You, human, your army destroyed my people. He nodded slowly. I know. I was part of that army. Once. That made her heart race again. But not anymore. He added, quickly. I left. I couldn't do it. I couldn't kill people who were just trying to survive. Zuri didn't believe him, not fully. But he hadn't hurt her. He'd given her water. That was more kindness than anyone had shown her in days. What do you want? She whispered. He looked around. The sky was turning orange with the setting sun. To help, he said. Zuri let out a bitter laugh. Help? Tie me tighter, maybe? The man smiled a little, then stepped forward again. He knelt and reached for the wire around her wrists. She flinched again, but this time didn't pull back. Carefully, he pulled out a small cutter from his belt and began to cut the wire. It took a few tries. Her arms were swollen and bloody. Zuri cried out in pain as the last wire snapped. Sorry, he said softly. I'm trying to be gentle. Zuri stared at her hands. They were shaking, covered in blood, but free. She looked up at him. What's your name? He stood up and offered her a hand. Rylan. She didn't take his hand, but she remembered the name. He didn't force her. Instead, he pulled out a piece of cloth and wrapped it gently around her wrist to stop the bleeding. Then another cloth for her forehead. She was dizzy. Why save me, Rylan? She asked. He looked at her, and for a second she saw something deep in his eyes. Guilt, pain, maybe even shame. Because someone once saved me, he said. Then a noise in the distance. Engines. Rylan looked up fast. We need to move, now. Zuri tried to stand, but her legs gave out. Without a word, Rylan bent down, picked her up gently in his arms, and started running. Zuri didn't scream, didn't fight. She just held on. She had braced for death. But instead, she felt a gentle touch. The man called Rylan Zuri woke with a scream. She thought she was still chained, still waiting to die. But when her eyes opened, she saw a metal ceiling above her. Dim lights flickered. A soft blanket lay over her. Her wounds were cleaned, and her wrists were wrapped with white cloth. And she was lying on a bed. For a second, she panicked. Was this another trap? Another cell? Then a deep voice spoke gently. You're safe now. Zuri turned her head. Sitting across the room was the same human from before, the one with tired eyes and strong arms, the one who didn't kill her. He had a fire going and a small heater. His armor was off. He looked ordinary, not like a soldier anymore. He smiled a little. You passed out while I was carrying you. I had to run half a mile. Zuri stared at him, unsure if she should speak. Where am I? She asked finally, her voice weak. An old outpost, he said. Abandoned since the war. I used it as shelter. Zuri tried to sit up. Pain shot through her ribs. She gasped. Careful, Rylan said, standing and walking over. He didn't touch her, just handed her a small flask of water. You need rest. She took it. Drank slowly this time. Her eyes stayed on him. You're not like the others. I'm not proud of what I used to be, he said quietly. But I'm trying to change that. Zuri frowned. Why help me? I was your enemy. Rylan sat down on a metal crate and looked into the fire. I've seen enough death, he said. Too much. And then one day I found a child, one of yours. She was crying over her mother's body. Zuri's heart tightened. What did you do? I didn't shoot, he said. I couldn't. I took her to a healer in the mountains, left quietly before they could see me. Zuri didn't expect that. A human helping an alien child? That was rare. Dangerous. You risked your life? She whispered. Rylan nodded. Yeah. She reminded me of someone I lost. Zuri looked away. She didn't want to feel anything. but something warm was trying to rise in her chest. Then she saw it, a strange mark on Ryland's chest, a long scar, thin and sharp just below his collarbone. Her eyes widened. "That mark," she said slowly. "It's not human." He looked down at it. "No. She gave it to me. The little alien girl, before she knew I was helping." "That's a warrior's mark," Zuri said. "From my people. It means I fight even when I bleed." Ryland smiled softly. "Then I guess she thought I was a fighter too." Zuri didn't know what to say. She had hated humans her whole life. But now, here was one. Sitting by a fire, telling stories, healing her wounds. Not every human was cruel. Still, trust wasn't easy. "What do you want from me?" she asked. Ryland stood and picked up a small food packet. He opened it and handed it to her. Warm steam rose from the container. "I want you to eat," he said. "Rest. And when you're strong enough, you decide what you want to do next. No cage." "No cage," he promised. "No chains." He shook his head. "No chains." Zuri took the food slowly. Her hands still trembled. She ate in silence. He didn't stare. He just gave her space. After a while, she asked, "What's your name?" He turned to her and gave a small nod. "Rylan." She nodded back. "Zuri." A quiet peace settled between them. But peace never lasts long in war zones. Suddenly, a loud beep echoed through the room. Rylan jumped to his feet and rushed to the small device on the wall. He pressed a button. A red light blinked. "What is it?" Zuri asked, alarmed. He cursed under his breath. "Bounty signal. Someone's tracking movement near this outpost." Zuri's heart stopped. "They're looking for me." Rylan grabbed his gear and handed her a coat. "We have to move. Now." Zuri tried to stand, but her legs still shook. Without asking, Rylan picked her up again. This time she didn't fight it. She wrapped her arms weakly around his shoulders. As they rushed through a hidden tunnel beneath the outpost, Zuri whispered something she never thought she would say to a human. "Thank you, Rylan." He smiled in the dark. "We're not done yet," he said. "But we'll make it."